Part 12. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 111. Chapter 111. There is hope only when you are full. He can't cry in front of his grandma, he can't cry in front of his father, and he can't let his brothers worry. It was only now that he was holding his youngest sister that he cried out all the fear and disappointment in his heart. Old Mrs. Lee tied one arm and brought water over. Seeing this from a distance, she secretly wiped her tears. Whether he can study well or not, the eldest grandson will not starve to death even if he works in the fields. Besides, he still has a happy family. But for such a kind and filial eldest grandson, she was really afraid that he would become depressed and lose his spirits. Now I'm feeling better, I don't feel depressed when I cry, and I'm not afraid of getting sick from being bored. Everyone didn't know how Grn figured it out, but when they saw him walking out of the cave with his injured hand hanging and helping to work, they were all happy for him. From time to time, someone would ask him to rest, and Grn would smile and shake his head. Perhaps the wild wolves were wiped out, frightening all the nearby wild beasts. It was extremely quiet near the cave that night. Unlike the ones that were constantly watched before, no birds or beasts really dared to approach. But most of the people were suffering from pain from their wounds and could not sleep. In the middle of the night, Mrs. Lu developed a fever, Grn's face turned red, and he talked nonsense. Lu Biatu and Lu Yang were very anxious. Fortunately, Tao Hongying was not injured. They fetched water and put a cloth on Mrs. Lu to cool her down. Li Laoer and Ji Jiawen are responsible for taking care of Grn, which is also the normal method. Shen Zhang had prepared medicinal herbs a long time ago, boiled them quickly, and drank them for the two of them. It was not until daybreak that the two of them had completely cooled down their fever. The cave was crowded with people, and Ji Yin didn't dare to make any small moves, because he was so anxious. Fortunately, Dr. Zhang is reliable and there are no dangers. But after such repetition, everyone felt a little depressed. Now we have gone deep into the forest and climbed almost a dozen mountains, and we cannot retreat. But everyone is injured, and the fever may worsen at any time. Even if there is a doctor following, no one can guarantee that he will be called out by the Lord of Hell. Could it be that the path of survival they chose was actually a path of death? Uncle Zhao's injured leg was getting worse and worse. Although he didn't have a fever, he was still very uncomfortable. The village chief's aunt was already weak, so after being attacked by a pack of wolves, she felt a little bad. The village chief has been taking care of her. The two backbones had no time to take into account everyone's emotions. And Li Laozi also has to lie down and recuperate. At this time, Lu Biatu stood up. Without calling the villagers, he took his son and Jia Yi and plunged into the forest. By the time the villagers discovered him, the sun was setting in the west. The three men also came back, bringing 5 rabbits, 3 pheasants, a red deer, and a roe deer. Such a rich harvest made the whole camp excited. Everyone who can still move, including the elderly and children, is busy. Boil water, peel the skin, roast the meat, stew it, and make chicken soup. There is fragrance and heat everywhere. Eating warm food and having a full stomach can make anyone feel less depressed. Yesterday, Mrs. Lu risked her life to kill a wolf in order to save the elderly and children, and was bitten through the shoulder. Today, Lu Biatu was so brave and came back with a rich prey. This couple is simply the second surprise sent to Qingshui village by God. The first one is of course the Li family. Everyone thanked them profusely while eating. Lu Biatu fed his wife chicken porridge with his own hands, waved his hands nonchalantly, and persuaded everyone. Eat and drink enough, take good care of yourself. We should go on the road tomorrow. We still have to go on the road. The weather is getting colder day by day. Be careful that we are blocked in the mountains and can't get out. I don't know what's going on outside. Are the barbarians coming? Although we will encounter many dangers when we go into the mountains, it is much better than being chased by barbarians with knives outside. Everyone nodded, thinking about the chaos and chaos outside. It seemed that it was much better to be in the woods. At least they can fight against the wild wolves, but against the barbarian cavalry, they may only be able to use their swords. Okay, I'll leave tomorrow morning. I must get out early. Yes, my left hand is injured, but I still have my right hand. I can pull the sledge on my shoulder without delay. Me too, no bones were injured, the skin and flesh injuries will be healed in a few days. Everyone discussed how to rearrange the sledges for the patients. After hearing this, the patients also declined each other. As long as their legs were not seriously injured, they all insisted on walking by themselves to reduce the burden on everyone. Li Laosi gnawed on the rabbit leg and gave Lu a thumbs up. Brother Lu is still very good, he is worthy of being a bodyguard. A few words can rekindle everyone's fighting spirit. Lu Biatu smiled bitterly, and without any further thought, he told the story of what happened before he met the Li family. It turns out that when they left Junyang, they gathered together 7 or 8 families with 40 or 50 people. I thought that there would be strength in numbers and someone would look after me on the way. Who would have thought that the family members of those families are stupid and meddlesome? They are away from home and do not know the principle of keeping their wealth secret. Not only did he bring a lot of valuable things, he was also wearing silk and satin, and his hair was full of pearls. As a result, he was noticed on the road. At night, a group of people came to sneak attack with hatchets and sticks. The family resisted vigorously and even ignored their own carriage, which was robbed of them. But the other families were unkind. Some ran away that night, and some saw them injured the next day and left secretly. Fortunately, there was still some soft rice on their only remaining carriage. But the silver they asked for through the city gate was too high, and the 3 of them were worried, so they met Li Laosi and the villagers. After finishing the porridge, Mrs. Lu felt a little better and sighed in agreement. Don't tell anyone else, even I brought a lot of useless things. It was my first time escaping, and my mind was in a state of confusion. I didn't expect it to be so difficult. Li Laosi quickly comforted her, sister-in-law, don't get angry. Although it was difficult, luckily we are over now. Mrs. Lu nodded and said with a smile, yes, your family is our lucky star. Before, when we were escorts, your brother Lu always said that he had found a treasure. With you uncle and nephew, he didn't know how worry-free he would be. Unexpectedly, in troubled times, during this time, our family needed your help and lost 3 lives. My sister-in-law is serious. Brother Lu and Lu Yang are both good players. Even my sister-in-law is brave and rare among women. We in the village are lucky enough to meet your family. There were villagers nearby who had just heard something about it, and now they were shouting. Yes, our village is very lucky. If we randomly pick up a few people, they are all the best. Everyone laughed, and the atmosphere in the camp became more and more harmonious. On the second day, everyone got up early, made a fire to cook, packed their luggage, checked the sledges, fed the surviving daking, and set off again. This time, there was no arrangement by the village chief or Uncle Zhao, but after experiencing life and death, all the young and strong people were like the broken spring grass after the storm, standing up again and becoming more tenacious. Whether it is opening the road in front, holding down the formation behind, or the distribution of sledges, it is all decided by the villagers themselves. Along the way, the division of labor was clear, and no one complained about hardship or tiredness. The village chief and Uncle Zhao were so happy that they almost shed tears. It's not that they are unwilling to protect the people in the village, but what is more gratifying than having successors and younger generations taking over the burden? Can't take care of so much good news. While we are on the way, the queue is long and there are many family members nearby. She was busy making food in the space and feeding her at any time, Of course most of them were steamed buns. End of this chapter. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 112. Chapter 112 Unexpected Disaster. Because the smell of steamed buns and the like is too strong, it is also difficult to operate. Steamed buns are much more convenient. You can break off a bite-sized piece at a time, stuff it directly into your mouth, and eat it slowly without anyone noticing. So, along the way, she sometimes sat in her grandma's arms, sometimes let her father carry her, and sometimes let her mother hold her. During the break, Mrs. Lee went to take a break, and asked her grandchildren to follow her to be brave. Good News is like a busy little bee, working hard to carry out the feeding business to the end. After walking for 3 more days, we rested under a cliff at noon. The young men were so full of energy that they didn't even feel tired after traveling all morning. While everyone was drinking water and basking in the increasingly waning sun, the young men suddenly ran back like crazy. Jian hugged Lu Baiatu's neck and said, "Uncle Lu, uncle. We found a big beehive, as big as an iron pot." "Yes, yes, there must be a lot of honey in it." The other boys also gathered around and looked at Lu Baiatu eagerly. Lu Baiatu was a doting child, and he had nothing to do at the moment, so he simply took the boys to dig out the honeycomb. Some villagers were also playful and followed him to help. Soon, they simply sewed up a large piece of linoleum and carried it away. Everyone was worried that the bees would go crazy and quickly looked for something to cover the children. The Lee family is no exception. Mrs. Lee covered her granddaughter with fine gauze and put a large wicker basket outside. Jian squatted inside, blinking his big eyes, not to mention feeling depressed. The caged bird is her. Fortunately, cheers came from the other side of the cliff soon. Some young man came back to report, "Uncle Lu has covered the beehive and has taken it down from the cliff, and he is smoking the bees." Everyone breathed a sigh of relief. 2/4 of an hour later, the young men came back happily, surrounding Lu Baiatu and others. Lu Baiatu and a villager carried a hive as big as a washing tub. Everyone was surprised and came forward to watch the excitement. Jian was also curious, so he went over there. Mrs. Lee hugged her, and Lu Baiatu lowered his head and picked up a piece of honeycomb. Brown honey, almost dripping. A woman with quick eyes and quick hands took a jar and held it underneath. When Captain Lu saw Jian, a chubby girl, she was so greedy that her mouth was watering. He took a spoon with a smile, took half a spoon and put it to her mouth. Fu Niu is the youngest and takes the first bite. He was not polite about the good news. He swallowed all the honey in one go. Pure honey seems to contain countless floral fragrances, which is by no means comparable to the syrups called wild honey in supermarkets in previous lives. Jian's eyes lit up and her little face was full of surprise, making everyone laugh. Fu Niu is a greedy little cat. What child doesn't like sweets? The adults on one side were anxious, jumping to their feet and shouting, "Uncle Lu, there are still us, there are still us." Just when Lu Baiatu was about to scoop out a few more spoons, a surviving wild bee suddenly flew out of the hive and headed straight for Jian. Before anyone could react, the poisonous needle on the back of it quickly pierced Jian's nose. Jian screamed in pain and burst into tears. "Oh, Fu Niu, don't cry." Mrs. Lee didn't expect it, so she stretched out her hand and pinched the wild bee to death, but it was too late. Jian's nose swelled rapidly, like a clown in a circus with a big red nose. Everyone rushed forward and wanted to help, but the wild bee was already dead. How could they help? It's good news, it's really. I don't know who couldn't help it, but was the first one to laugh out loud, and then it became a movie. Jian's nose hurt and itched. She was already uncomfortable. Seeing everyone like this made her cry even louder. Old Mrs. Lee felt distressed and wanted to laugh, but mostly blamed herself. Why are you joining in the fun? Your granddaughter will suffer a loss. She quickly hugged her granddaughter and ran to find Dr. Zhang. Dr. Zhang also laughed so hard that his beard trembled. He was so angry that Jiyan hugged his hand and bit her hard. It's a pity that she only has a few small deciduous teeth, so she doesn't have much strength. The Dr. Zhang finally found some ointment and applied it on her. The rare coolness made Jiyan feel much better, but she still lay limply in her grandma's arms, covering her nose with her little hands. This made everyone laugh again and tease her. Fu Niu, what are you holding your nose for? Let me see. Okay. Fu Niu, I heard that your nose has turned into a red fruit. Fu Niu, is the honey sweet? I heard that the wild bees are seeking revenge on you. Old Mrs. Li hurriedly chased the person away. My Fu Niu is smart and can understand what you are saying, but don't make the child angry. Everyone stopped teasing her, but Lu Biatu brought a large bowl of honey over so that Jiyan could eat enough and vent her anger. During a hard journey, it is rare to have such a relaxing and joyful time. Nearly everyone took a few big mouthfuls of honey to sweeten their mouths, and filled 2 more jars. The children also shared the beehive to eat, but unfortunately it was winter soon and there were not many bee pupae, which was a wonderful thing. Sweets are a catalyst for good mood. In the afternoon, because of these few mouthfuls of honey, both the elderly and children feel much lighter on their feet. But in the next few days, the children of each family were more noisy than usual. Because as long as you make trouble, you will get a mouthful of honey. There was only good news. I touched my swollen nose from time to time and did not touch the honey jar again. A few days later, the honey jar was empty, and everyone climbed over 5 mountains. Seeing that they had walked more than half the distance, everyone was happy. But the joy did not last for one night, but was broken the next morning. When I woke up in the morning, a little bit of snow actually fell from the sky. Although it only rained for a while, it gave everyone a signal. Winter is coming. The village chief, Uncle Zhao, and other old people gathered together, all with dark faces. Winter snow is such a thing. If one snowfall occurs, a second one will come soon, and each one is bigger and colder than the last. Calculating carefully, it is only the beginning of September, and winter has come too early. Brother, I'm afraid something is wrong. Uncle Zhao frowned tightly and said, there was a severe drought this summer, so it stands to reason that there should be floods in autumn. But it didn't rain much before, so I was happy. Now it seems that the floods will happen in winter. The village chief nodded, looking at this, it's really not good. We need to prepare early. Lu Biatu and Li Laosi were sitting on the side, also feeling worried. Lu Biatu, who is the most familiar with the terrain among these people, said. There are at least 17 or 8 mountains to climb over, and 2 of them are particularly difficult. It will take 5 or 6 days to get out of these 2 mountains alone. In other words, it will take at least 20 days to get out. Li Laosi nodded and looked up at the sky. Looking at the weather, I'm afraid it will snow heavily in the next 20 days if we don't survive. Not to mention it will be harder to walk by then, as the weather is cold and it's easy to get sick. But if we find a place to stay for the winter, with so many people, food rations will be a problem. Procrastination by next spring, it will be even more unclear what the situation will be like. It's okay if the barbarians retreat, but it will be even more troublesome if the barbarians completely occupy the north of the Jinsha River. Handled between a rock and a hard place, everyone was silent for a while. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 113. Chapter 113. The Protector has fallen. In the end, Everyone could not come up with a solution and could only continue on their way. I don't know if it's because of the cold weather, but there seem to be suddenly fewer wild animals in the forest, and insects and snakes are no longer afraid, and have long since disappeared. In the team, people old and young all had some guesses and were worried, and their feet accelerated even faster. But a dozen mountains cannot be climbed over by speeding up in 1 or 2 days. After walking for another 3 days, the second snow fell. This time it has been raining for half a day, and the snowflakes have not melted yet. When I step on them, they are almost covering the top of my feet. Everyone took out their cotton padded clothes, and those who didn't have cotton padded clothes wrapped themselves in 2 more layers of single clothes. The Lee family was the first to prepare, of course, cotton padded clothes for everyone, including Uncle Zhao. Only Dr. Zhang was wearing a single suit when he was tied by Yeshan. Fortunately, the Li family was kind enough to prepare new coats and trousers for Uncle Zhao early. Uncle Zhao wore the old ones, so he gave the new ones to Dr. Zhang. He was not polite, dressed warmly, and urged Zhao Yuru to sew a hat for him. Uncle Zhao had nothing to do for a few days and tanned a few wolf skins, but the time was short and the smell was very strong. Zhang Shanai didn't mind it either. He kept it on his head and wouldn't take it off day and night. Because it is too cold to sleep at night, and the most heard thing in the camp recently is sneezing. It was another night, extremely cold after the snow. The elderly and children were hiding in the shacks, and the men were talking around the campfire. It wasn't that they didn't want to sleep, but they were too cold to sleep. The village chief and Uncle Zhao gathered together to talk. Look at this, we can't go out before the heavy snow closes the mountain. We should make preparations in advance and quickly find a place to stay for the winter. Otherwise, the elderly and children will not be able to bear it and will get sick. It's too late. Everyone nodded. It's really too cold, let alone the elderly and children. We won't be able to bear it for another 2 days. Li Laoer said, Uncle, we can find a place to stay for the winter. But first we need to find a cave that is sheltered from the wind and warm, and 1 or 2 are not enough, so it is not easy to find such a suitable place. The second thing is the rations for the winter. Hurry up and collect all the food you can eat. The third thing is to stock up on medicinal materials in case everyone has a headache or fever in the winter. The second one is right, these are the 3 major things at hand. Let's discuss it, and we must split up and settle down as soon as possible before the third snowfall. The village chief knocked on his pipe and pot, and said, Lu Bayatu, you have walked through this mountain, can I leave it to you to find a place to live? Okay, Lu Bayatu agreed. I vaguely remember that there is a similar place 2 mountains away, but I can't tell for sure. Give me a brother, add Lu Yang and Ji Yi, and I'll be there at dawn. Let's go. Okay, you can pick any man you want, mark the road, and we will follow them to find you. The village chief waved his hand, and it was settled. Of course, Zhang Shanai took half of the sons to Zhang Luo. It became the job of the whole village to pick all the edible mountain products and prepare winter rations. It's only September now, and we won't be able to leave the mountain until at least March next year. There are nearly 100 people, and there is still 1 month's worth of food rations left. In other words, they have to find mountain products that can feed the whole village for 5 months in this endless mountain forest. This is simply a foolish dream, but we must do it even if we can't do it. No one wants the elderly and children to go hungry. This journey has been extremely difficult and dangerous, and it is not easy to get here. There is no way we can fall short. The women left the cooking chores to the old men, and would rush into the woods with their baskets on their backs whenever they needed to rest. At this time, we are no longer afraid of insects, snakes, black bears, or wild wolves. Compared with starving to death, these things no longer scare them. Ji Yin had been waiting for this moment for a long time. She lay obediently in her grandma's arms, leading her mother and aunt out of the group little by little, and then frantically moved things out of the space. Apples, pears, piles of chestnuts, dates, rabbits that committed suicide, and nests of eggs. Everyone is frantically picking mountain products, walnuts, chestnuts, fungus, frozen mushrooms, all kinds of things. From time to time, some people hunted pheasants, rabbits, and even roe deer. So, although the things that the Lee family's mother-in-law and daughter-in-law brought back were novel, they were not too eye-catching. Even if it is eye-catching, no one has time to think too much about it. When you are struggling to survive, anything that can fill your stomach is a good thing, no matter where it comes from. It's better if it falls from the sky, proving that God didn't want them to starve to death. Just like that, walking and stopping, the villagers were so busy that their eyes turned red. What the women picked back was enough to load 4 large sledges. The men were not idle either, and 3 sledges were filled with prey. Especially Li Laosi, who carried back a lone male wild boar. Although these things are still not enough to survive the winter, they also give everyone great confidence. Like this, after walking for another 3 days, the weather got even colder, and there was a wind and snow at night. Everyone huddled together to protect the elderly and children from the wind and snow, and they also burned many bonfires. But after one night, more than 20 people were still infected with the cold. 5 little children, 5 old people, and the rest are young and strong. Everyone in the Lee family is fine except Mrs. Lee, who has some nasal congestion. Their coats and trousers were already thick, so Ji-Yan secretly took out an old quilt at night and thickened the bedding. This was thrown away when she left home, and she packed it up. When I took it out at this time, no one paid much attention. Orange Mrs. Lee, Tao Hongying, and Zhao Yuru blocked Jia and Jiaxi in the middle, while Jia and Jiaxi hugged her sister tightly. The 2 brothers Li Lao and the Jiaran family gathered around the outermost area to celebrate. The Li family is like an onion, layer by layer protecting good news in the middle. But she couldn't sleep well, her heart was burning, and she was anxious about how to get the food out of the space. How to keep your family warm and how to survive this winter safely. As a result, before she could figure out a solution, something happened again. Zhang Shanai led a group of young men to collect herbs and boil them. Perhaps they were caught by the wind and were also infected by the wind and cold. He relied on himself as a doctor and felt that it was not serious, so he just drank a bowl of medicinal soup to prevent colds. But when night fell, he had a severe fever. He was 60 years old and was tied to a horse by Yeshan and jolted all the way to Li's house. After staying there for only a few days, he fled. In the deep mountains and old forests, even if the Li family takes care of her, she cannot eat well or sleep well. It is expected that the old man's body cannot bear it. But at this time, he was the protector of everyone. He suddenly fell and everyone panicked. Li Laosi and his men cut down trees all night and built a small one next to the Li family's shack. I laid out a bedding for the old man alone and built a small brazier for warmth. This way the Li family will not be infected and it will be easier to take care of. Tao Hongying and Zhao Yuru fetched water and applied it to the old man's forehead. Seeing that it was useless, they did not care about etiquette, so they took off the old man's cotton-padded jacket and wiped his chest and back. The old man also drank the antipyretic soup he had prepared for the villagers. But the old man's fever kept getting worse and worse, and in the middle of the night, he had already started talking nonsense. "Look where you are going, I must find out who you are. Tell me, what magic medicine was it that cured Yeziazi? There is nothing in the world that can heal itself without medicine." Jiyan was originally thinking about the old man and secretly came to the small shack to take a look, but then she heard this when she entered the door. Her feet went weak and she almost fell on the old man. It turns out that this old man has been trying to catch her pigtails. The book reviews have reached 300, and Huahua will provide the 4th update on time. The next time the book review reaches 350, Huahua will add more. Darlings, keep moving your fingers and nodding for 5-star reviews. Huahua needs many, many 5-star reviews. End of this chapter. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 114. Chapter 114 Don't Make a Fuss. Tao Hongying was afraid that her daughter would be infected, so she picked her up and scolded her in a low voice. Why did you come here? Go back quickly. Be careful, you are still feverish. It's time to drink bitter medicine. Jiyan glanced at Dr. Zhang. The old man's face was red and his forehead was so hot that he could fry an egg. Although this old man is usually very arrogant and doesn't get along with many people in the village. But along the way of escaping from the famine, what the old man did was not ambiguous at all. Especially when the wolves attacked earlier, the old man saved everyone by himself. Collecting herbs and boiling them, I was almost dead from exhaustion, but no one said anything. The benevolence of doctors is most vividly reflected in the old man. Now that the old man is so seriously ill, she should lend a hand and save him, both emotionally and rationally. But this old man had uneasy intentions and wanted to catch her by her pigtails. To know that Mr. Ye recovered from his illness, she left no clue or evidence. Even if Mr. Ye told her, no one would believe her. It just so happened that this old man recognized that there was something strange in the Li family. Just as Tao Hongying was about to take her daughter out, Mrs. Li came over. Jiyan immediately got into Grandma's arms and shouted in a tender voice, Grandma, Grandpa is hot. Original Mrs. Li was also thinking about divine Dr. Zhang, so she gave instructions to her daughter-in-law. You go and have a nap, I'm going to coax Fu Niu to sit here for a while. Tao Hongying is indeed very tired. She has to collect mountain goods during the day and take care of patients at night. Her eyes are red and bloodshot from the exhaustion. At this time, she no longer insisted, so she nodded. Mom, please send Fu Niu back soon, be careful, she's also feverish. Nu. Old Mrs. Li agreed. Seeing that they were the only two people in the shack, she quietly discussed with her granddaughter. Fu Niu, you see how pitiful Dr. Zhang is with his fever. Mr. Ye entrusted him to our family, and we can't just let him be so sick. Can we give him that little white thing that reduces fever? Will he take a piece? Jiyan pouted, glanced at old man Zhang, and finally felt soft. Humph, for the sake of Mr. Ye giving so many silver coins. She reluctantly stretched out her little hand, and there was a small white pill lying in her hand. Old Mrs. Li was so happy that she kissed her granddaughter hard, and then hurriedly fed the old man. Although Dr. Zhang was very ill, he still remembered to swallow and had a strong desire to survive. He was in his dream right now, like a fish in a sea of fire, almost being roasted. He was so angry that he couldn't escape even if he wanted to. Finally, an inexplicable force seemed to gradually extinguish the flames, giving him a chance to breathe. Shortly afterwards, some cool water moistened his body, making him feel better. He breathed a sigh of relief, but suddenly an idea flashed in his mind, and he subconsciously reached out and grabbed it. Finally, I caught you. The village chief was supporting divine Dr. Zhang and feeding him water when his wrist was suddenly grabbed and the water bowl spilled onto the bed, which startled him. Mr. Zhang, you're awake. That's great. You've been burning for most of the night. If you don't wake up, everyone will go crazy. The redness in Dr. Zhang's eyes still hasn't faded away, and he looked around confusedly. This is a newly built shack. He is lying on the quilt, and a small bonfire is lit at the door for warmth and lighting. Jiaran was adding wood to the fire, holding a branch in his left hand and slowly practicing writing on the ground. At this moment, he also looked over with concern on his face. Grandpa Zhang, are you hungry? Do you want me to bring you a bowl of porridge to satisfy your hunger? Zhang Shanai blinked twice, let go of the village chief's hand, and asked, what medicine did you give me just now? The village chief and Grn looked at each other and shook their heads. No, we only feed you 2 bowls of water. What water? It's the water we boiled when we camped last time. There is no water source here, so we can only drink what we saved. You really didn't give me any medicine. Shenjiang Dr. Zhang kept asking, and he hesitated when he saw the village chief and Grn shaking their heads, not looking like they were lying. Maybe I am really confused, but I always feel that something is wrong. Mr. Zhang, please sleep a little longer. The fever has subsided. Don't let the wind blow. The village chief helped him lie down and dismissed his question as a feverish nonsense. Mr. Zhang was indeed a little weak, and fell asleep again shortly after lying down. Soon, Jia Huan and Li Laosan came to change shifts, while Jia Ren and the village chief went back to rest. Just like that, everyone took turns to keep watch. At dawn, Dr. Zhang woke up and recovered a little. Tao Hongying wanted to make breakfast, but her daughter rubbed her eyes and insisted on following. She had no choice but to tie her daughter to her back. Jiyan was blown away by the wind and shrunk his neck. When his mother turned around, he quickly filled the bag of fine noodles at home half full. Originally, there was only a layer of base left. If she didn't add more, she was afraid that it would be completely gone after 1 or 2 more meals. Tao Hongying took the basin and was about to pick up the bag and control it when she found that the bag was half full, which made her heart beat wildly. When he came to his senses, he turned to look at his daughter. She was already rubbing her eyes and yawning again. She quickly sent her daughter back to the shack and whispered a few words in her mother-in-law's ear. Mrs. Li nodded, hugged her granddaughter and rocked her gently, and finally told her daughter-in-law, "Don't make a fuss. It's not like I haven't seen her before at home." Tao Hongying couldn't help but feel happy in her eyes. Can it be the same at home as it is here? Finding more food at home improves life, and it saves lives here. She turned around and went out, immediately burning a small pot by herself. The big pot cooked gnocchi soup for the patients, and the small pot steamed a bowl of egg custard for the daughter. The other women didn't say anything when they saw it. First of all, Jiyan is the youngest among the whole team, and secondly, Mrs. Li picked up the eggs, so it's not too much to open a small stove for her granddaughter. After breakfast was cooked, everyone took their own portion and ate it. Mr. Zhang was bundled up tightly, and while drinking pimple soup, he looked at the Li family one by one, and finally gave up. It's better to stop trying to find some hidden master and take care of yourself first. If his fate is left in this mountain, he really can't live up to his name as a miracle doctor. After all, everyone is not a squeamish noble person. After taking medicine, sleeping one night, getting up early and eating and drinking enough, they are mostly healed and can continue on their way. The team reached noon in one breath, when there was movement in the mountains and forests ahead. Everyone subconsciously clenched the hatchets in their hands to be on guard against big beasts. Unexpectedly, it was Jia Yi who came out, and he shouted happily when he saw everyone. "Grandpa Village Chief, Grandpa Zhao, we have found a place to stay, it's right in front." The master asked Lu Yang and I to come over and greet you. Sure enough, before he could finish his words, Lu Yang walked out of the forest with a gasp. He was already fat, but he didn't lose much weight during his escape. Everyone was very happy and quickly quickened their pace and followed the two boys forward. After walking for about half an hour, everyone came out of the woods and came to a slightly wider valley. It is not quite appropriate to say it is a valley. This is actually a gravel beach sandwiched between two cliffs. On a cliff, a waterfall flowed down from a height of more than 10 feet, forming a large pool under the cliff. When the pool is full and then flows out, it becomes a small river. On the other side of the river, about 20 feet away, there is another cliff. The cliff is 2 feet high from the ground. I don't know when someone dug 6 or 7 caves of different sizes. The mountain wind has been blowing for many years, and some wormwood vines have grown at the entrance of the cave, which looks a bit desolate. Lu Biatu was standing in one of them, looking out, smiling and waving to everyone. End of this chapter. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 115. Chapter 115 Tailor-made. He is also a very talented person and very bold. From such a high place, he jumped down and came down. Mrs. Lu in the team screamed in fright, fearing that he would break it. The women around her couldn't help laughing. Mrs. Lu blushed and took a few steps quickly. At once, everyone was at the foot of the cave. Lu Biatu cupped his hands with everyone and introduced them to everyone with a smile. I have gone in and looked at all these caves, and also briefly cleaned them. They are located in a high place, and no wild animals have settled there. There are only some bird droppings. They are facing the wind, and the wind is strong inside. If we want to live there, we are afraid that the caves will be destroyed. Block the hole. The village chief nodded happily. It's so hard for you to find such a good place. This is simply tailor-made for us. Finally, we don't have to worry about being frozen in the winter. Uncle Zhao and the others were also happy. These caves should be enough for us to live in. Head guard Lu will tell you how big each one is and how many people can live there. Let's quickly pack up our luggage. There is still a lot of work to be done. Lu Biatu started counting from left to right. The first and second ones are almost the same, and can accommodate 12 or 3 people. The third one is the largest, and can accommodate more than 30 people. The fourth one is slightly smaller, but can accommodate 6 or 7 people. There are no problem. The fifth one has about 20 people, and the sixth one has about a dozen people. Everyone in the village looked up at the cave. They looked the same from the outside. There was no difference between good and bad, and the directions were all the same. The village chief thought for a while and then said, Sister Li family, you see there are exactly 12 or 13 people in your family. How about living in the first one on the left? Mrs. Li, carrying her granddaughter on her back, was also thinking about this matter. The whole family lived in a cave without outsiders, so it was convenient to do anything. What the village chief said was exactly what she wanted, so she responded, Okay, thank you village chief, let's live here. The village chief pointed to the second cave, the one next to Lao Si's family. We, the old couple plus Lao Xiaolu, Dr. Zhang, and... He hesitated for a moment and nodded to Lu Biatu and his family of 3. How about adding Lu Biatu and his family? It will be convenient for us to discuss anything. Okay, then the 3 of us will live with the uncles. Lu Biatu's family is most familiar with the Li family. They can't fit into a cave, so they might as well live closer. With the remaining 4 caves, the village chief simply threw them to everyone. You guys should stick together, just remember to survive together through adversity, but don't settle down and make noise all day long because of trivial matters. Don't worry, village chief, there is no one who is ignorant, the villagers all responded. Hunting around for almost a month has already brought their bodies and energy to the brink of collapse. Everyone was so eager to settle down that they quickly made company without wasting a moment. But the problem before us is that the entrance of the cave is too high. How to get up? The village chief raised his pipe and pot and shouted, a bunch of idiots, they think it's a bad thing to think that the entrance to the cave is high. It's not easy for you to climb up, it's not easy for the beast, and it's not easy if a bad guy comes to steal it. In this way, sleeping up there is the best option. You're safe, you don't have to keep vigil at night. The villager blushed and nodded quickly, Uncle, we know this cave is good, but, how do we climb up and get in and out? It was Lu Biatu who laughed loudly and explained everyone's doubts. This is easy, you guys can make a soft ladder out of vines, and I'll go up and tie it up for you. Send the elderly and children up first, and then you can use the wicker basket to pull water in and out. Oh, this is a good idea. I'm going to chop down the vines right now. Together, together. The villagers have never lacked mobility and are not afraid of work, but they are used to following orders and their minds are not very flexible. At this time, I had an idea and started to get busy. The women were also not idle. The children were left in the care of the old man. They hurried to cut the hay and left it for a while to make the bed. Also cut firewood, prepare for cooking, and the same busy feet are not stained. Soon, the rattan ladders were woven one by one. Lu Biao took a few steps back and jumped almost 10 feet in one flight. He then grabbed the protruding rocks on the cliff and jumped into the cave in a few moves. Once the ladder was fixed, the men couldn't wait to climb in, then climbed down the wicker basket and pulled the old man and the child in. Thinking that they would have to go in and out more often in the future, the women tried to climb the ladder by themselves. As a result, he was hanging in the air and screaming, and he fell down after climbing a foot, making a lot of fools of himself. There was a lot of noise in the canyon for a while. The village chief and Uncle Zhao looked on with smiles, and most of the anxiety and uneasiness that had accumulated in their hearts finally dissipated. Having been busy for most of the day, when it was completely dark, everyone finally calmed down a little. The Li family's cave was cleaned up by the diligent Tao Hongying and Zhao Yuru, without a single piece of gravel. This cave is about the size of 2 rooms, divided into 2 parts, the inside and the outside. The position closest to the cave wall was covered with thick hay and linoleum on top of the hay, and then the bedding was laid out. This is the place where Mrs. Li, her daughter-in-law, Jian, and Jiaxi Jian sleep. The middle will be separated by a straw curtain, and outside will be the seats of Li Lao Er, Li Lao San, Li Lao Si and Jia Ren. Further outside, there is still a cave 7 or 8 steps away. In this area, the family plans to build an earthen stove. It is too cold in winter, so they will light a fire in the cave to cook. This way you can keep yourself warm in the cave without having to toss it up and down. Old Mrs. Li was packing the packages and baskets at home, and Jiyan followed her, making small moves from time to time. For example, filling sorghum rice bags, sweet potato baskets and japonica rice jars. Originally, on the way, everyone gathered the food together to make it easier to cook. Now each family lives separately, and the cave is inconvenient to enter and exit, so the food is divided again. The Li family received only about 10 kilograms of sorghum and more than 30 kilograms of sweet potatoes. There is not much left of the fine japonica rice and flour prepared at home for the good news. Orange Mrs. Li spread out her clothes, shoes, and socks on the quilt, ready to dry out the moisture. When she turned around, she also told her daughter-in-law to go into the mountains tomorrow to collect more mountain products. After all, there were so many people in the family, and if they didn't want to be hungry in winter, they had to be quick at this time. As a result, her mouth opened and she could not close it. The sorghum rice bag in front of her was almost full to the point of spilling out, the sweet potato basket was almost buried by the sweet potatoes, and the japonica rice jars were also sticking out. She shivered in shock and subconsciously looked towards the entrance of the cave. She breathed a sigh of relief when she saw that no one was there. Then she turned around and glared at her granddaughter. Jiyan held onto the wall, walked crookedly, and finally threw herself into Grandma's arms with a smile. She was so happy that finally there were no outsiders around, so she no longer had to secretly feed her family members in the middle of the night. You can do whatever you want and eat whatever you want. Old Mrs. Li hugged her granddaughter and patted her butt. This girl is really becoming more and more daring. Before, she would do some small tricks at night, or have a cover, but now it is still daytime, and she just makes a bunch of things in such a careless way. What if she is seen by outsiders? Put it away quickly, quickly. Mrs. Li lowered her voice and scolded her granddaughter in her ear. Jiyan was spanked for the first time, and she felt a little aggrieved, but she still obeyed and restored the grains and sweet potatoes to their original appearance. Old Mrs. Li breathed a long sigh of relief. Seeing that neither daughter-in-law saw her, she told them, "Go down and get firewood and fetch water. Let's prepare to cook. Fu Niu is hungry." End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 116. Chapter 116 Getting Carried Away. Tao Hongying stepped on the upside-down wicker basket and was busy nailing the straw curtain. After listening to her mother-in-law's instructions, she jumped down and went down to the cave entrance with Zhao Yuru to set up the curtain. Mrs. Li then whispered to her granddaughter, "Fu Niu, don't bring things out so suddenly in the future. Now that you can speak, you must tell grandma in advance. Otherwise, if someone sees you, they will capture you and burn you as a monster." "Grandma is no longer alive." Jiyan didn't expect grandma to be so angry. In her opinion, everyone in the family can be trusted. Now that we have an independent place to live again, there is nothing wrong with improving our food. We can't live frugally as a family, but the chickens, ducks, and geese in the space can eat and drink well every day. Seeing that her granddaughter's face was filled with grievances, the old lady was reluctant to let her go. She hugged her granddaughter and sighed. "Fu Niu, grandma knows that you care about your family and wish you could do everything possible to plan for your family as soon as you were born. Grandma is also happy that you are filial and happy that you protect and take care of your family. But grandma also feels sorry for you. Grandma doesn't know where these good things come from, but they are all blessings. Our family has not done anything great and cannot help you. If you use up all the blessings in the future, you will something happen? Grandma really doesn't dare to think about it." Jiyan finally understood what the old lady was worried about. She felt really warm and helpless in her heart. Actually, she doesn't know what space is about. Secretly, she always thinks that she was too lonely in her previous life. God is pitiful and gave her a chance to have her loved ones again. This space is her golden finger to protect her loved ones. But grandma doesn't know. It turns out that when she took out things again and again, thinking that she was protecting and taking care of her family, grandma was actually so worried and conflicted. Think about it carefully. My father can hunt and gather a lot of wild products, so I won't go hungry for the time being. I was really a little carried away just now." She quickly hugged her grandma's neck to reassure the old lady. "Grandma, I am obedient." The old lady hugged her granddaughter's limp little body and finally breathed a sigh of relief when she saw that she listened to the advice. "It's because the family is useless and it's dragging you down, and you have a little girl to worry about. I just hope to settle down as soon as possible, and the family will live a good life. You just need to grow up well." The mountain wind howled, and a ray got into the cave. Seeing the grandfather and grandson like this, they didn't dare to disturb them and ran away. In the canyon, most of the villagers were still busy around the campfire. The night is very cold, but everyone's heart is warm. Weaving straw curtains, fetching and boiling water, cooking and washing, there are endless tasks and endless things to say. Li Lao-san had made a pile of mud early. Hearing his daughter-in-law's shouts, he called Li Lao-si and Ji Jiawen, and they went to his cave together. Ji followed the latter, carrying a bucket of mud, and climbed up in twos and twos like a monkey. Then, he stood at the entrance of the cave, and Li Laosi began to throw stones upward. Each of the stones was as big as a small pottery pot, but in the hands of the uncle and nephew, they were as light as sweet potatoes. They threw them up while playing. Others were jealous and came to ask for help. So, after the uncle and nephew finished throwing away their own stones, they went from cave to help. By the time they returned home, Li Lao-san and his family had already set up the earthen stove and started to light the fire. There are 2 small pots of my own on the earth stove, one to boil water for vegetable porridge, and the other to cook sweet potatoes. It's just that there is no curtain at the entrance of the cave, so the mountain wind blows in and the smoke flows in, choking everyone and coughing. Li Lao-san scratched the back of his head naively, feeling a little embarrassed. Tomorrow we will build more than half of the hole, cover it with a straw curtain, and then find wood to fasten a chimney to let the smoke out. Okay, that's good. After dinner, I will put the basket outside the door to block the wind. Mrs. Lee comforted her son. Compared with sleeping in the woods, this was already very good. Soon, the two naughty boys Jian and Jia 11 came back. It's rare for a family to get together and have a quiet dinner. Mrs. Lee was very happy and cut 3 salted duck eggs. The family ate sorghum rice porridge and boiled sweet potatoes with relish. The cave is very simple, and even the entrance of the cave winds and the wind blows, which is not very warm. But the family does not have to worry about wild beasts suddenly appearing, or insects and snakes crawling up, which is extremely satisfying. There was nothing to talk about all night, and everyone was even busier the next morning. After a simple bite of food, everyone went into the forest together. Every family is busy chopping firewood, mowing grass, picking up mountain products, even cutting down trees, digging barrels, and making chimneys. After all, we have to live here all winter, and we know that there will be heavy snow that will block the mountains. If we don't hurry up and stock up on firewood and food, we are simply asking for death. Except for Mrs. Lee, who was looking after the good news, the rest of the Lee family went down. Li Lao-san thought that the cave was too small and difficult to use, so after cutting down the tree, he started to toss under the cliff. He was also very handy. Not only did he make a chimney, but he also nailed a square table and several small benches. Afraid that the good news would be too small to sit on, I made an extra small chair with a backrest. Jiyan lay on the straw mat at the entrance of the cave and looked down to watch the excitement. Actually, she has a lot of these wooden utensils in her space, but it's not convenient to take them out at this time. Not to mention that Lu Biatu and his son must be in constant contact, there is also Dr. Zhang who is eyeing him. If any clues are discovered, no one will do anything to her, but she will always cause trouble for the family. Everyone is like a hard-working ant, perfecting his cave bit by bit as much as possible. The Li family not only has to take care of themselves, but also helps the Lu family. Because the village chief's aunt is in poor health, Uncle Zhao and the others are either lame or have disabled hands, so it is always inconvenient to work. Coupled with the addition of Dr. Zhang, apart from being able to treat patients, he is unable to do anything else. In the final analysis, Lu Biatu's family and the village chief are the only labor force in the cave next door. God may indeed be a little partial to everyone. The weather these days is actually warmer than before. This gave everyone plenty of time, and the piles of wood piled up immediately under the cliff, and there were 3 in a pile. Especially the one next to Li's house, which is almost flush with the entrance of the cave and built on the cliff. It not only blocks the wind, but also allows you to reach for firewood, which is very convenient. Of course, when the burning lasts, they still have to go down to get firewood, but this already makes Zhao Yuru and Tao Hongying very satisfied. Li Laosi took the young men in the village to hunt in the mountains every day. There were no big prey, but there were many rabbits and pheasants. After peeling off the skin and removing the internal organs, apply coarse salt on it and put it outside the hole, and let it dry in 2 or 3 days. In winter, a large pot of dried vegetables and stew is enough for the whole family to make toothpaste. Jiyan had nothing to do and began to think about helping. While she and her grandma were alone in the cave, she asked her grandma for her opinion. She took out 2 half-old mattresses from the small space courtyard and quietly placed them under the withered grass. This completely blocks the cool air coming from below and makes it difficult to be discovered. With linoleum and quilts spread on it, the bed becomes much thicker. Jiaran also carried the 2 hot water bottles he had brought to the college. one on the man's side and one on the woman's side. At night, I drank boiling hot water, tucked it into the bed, stepped on it with my cold feet, and soon my whole body was warmed up. Everyone sighed in comfort. Jian was naughty and curious, and even wanted to open the bag to take a look, but Mrs. Li gave her a slap in the face. If you dare to open it and talk nonsense, you won't be able to eat anymore. Jian immediately became obedient. She huddled under the quilt, with her little head exposed, and whispered from time to time. Jian was tired from working hard during the day and felt drowsy. Her brother had disturbed her sleep, so Mrs. Li knocked her grandchildren one by one, and the cave immediately became quiet. That night, the third heavy snow fell. When the villagers got up early, they went down to the cave and the snow was up to their knees. Everyone is glad that they were not lazy before, otherwise they would have really been blinded at a time like this. Fortunately, the small waterfall has a large amount of water and the pool is not frozen. Everyone does not have to worry about fetching water once a day. Like this, after 3 or 4 days, Li Laosi became a little restless. He climbed to the cave next door and discussed with the village chief and Lu Biatu, wanting to go out and have a look. Hunt when you can, and if you encounter people, even better. Always ask what's going on outside. Otherwise, after the new year, it would be a bad thing to walk out and run directly into the arms of a barbarian. End of this chapter. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 117. Chapter 117 Not from my own family. This idea coincides with Lu Biatu's. He would go crazy if he was trapped in a cave every day. What a good idea. I've been thinking about this for the past few days. If you don't come, I'll go over and talk to you. He pulled a branch and started drawing on the ground. These dozens of mountains are connected into a piece. In fact, the overall look is a bit like a P. Let's come in from the tail of the bean, and the top of the bean is the Jinsha River. Now we stay here. If I guessed correctly, it is the thinnest waist of the bean. As long as we go east, maybe we can see people after climbing 4 or 5 mountains. The village chief frowned, a little worried. It's been a month since everyone broke into the forest, and no one's hand has been broken. It's really not easy. When the mountains are blocked by heavy snow, it would be too dangerous if you go out for a walk and accidentally get delayed somewhere. Let's take a long-term view. It won't be too late to go out and check after spring. Li Laosi and Lu Biatu looked at each other, both wanting to give it a try. Lu Biatu said, "Uncle Village Chief, we don't need more people. It's just me and Lao Si who will go out. With our ability, we are not afraid even if we encounter some difficulties." "No, Dad, take me and Ji with you." Lu Yang listened and stopped immediately. Ji also stepped forward and nodded wildly, "Yes, we are going too." Lu Biatu slapped his son, smiled and scolded him, "Go away while we talk about business." Lu Yang started to make a fuss, "We are all adults now that we can hunt. Why can't we just listen to business?" "Yes, if you don't agree, we will follow you secretly," Ji also supported. Like Lu Yang's brothers, he longed to wear a pair of trousers, so of course he had to advance and retreat together at this time. Everyone was dumbfounded by the trouble made by these two boys. The village chief thought for a while and said, "You can go if you want. Everyone is in Madong, so there is no danger, but you must remember not to go too far, and go back early." "Okay, uncle, we are also thinking about home and we will not go too far." Even after this matter was settled, all the caves were happy after hearing about it, and they were all wondering what it was like outside. The barbarians retreated, but they had already reached the Jinsha River. They even vaguely hoped that the capital would not move south. Although everyone knows that this is unlikely. On the second day, Lu Biatu and Li Laosi took their family and Lu Yang and set off. They were also relying on their ability. They only had a few sorghum flour cakes stuffed in their arms, but they were fully equipped with bows, arrows, and long knives. This means that after going out, all food and drink must be found in the forest. Of course the Lee family was concerned about it, but they knew they couldn't stop it, so they simply let it go. As a result, the two of them went into the woods and did not come back for 7 or 8 days. No matter how much the Lee family believes in the abilities of Li Laosi and Lu Biatu, they can no longer sit still. The entrance of the cave was blocked by 2 layers of straw curtains, which made the cave a little dark. Fortunately, there was firewood on the stove and there was barely any light. The pot was half filled with water, and the sides of the pot were sizzling and steaming. Old Mrs. Lee hugged her granddaughter, quietly opened the curtain, and looked out into the mountains and forests. "It's a pity that I looked again and again, but still couldn't see anyone. Old Mrs. Lee couldn't help but regret, I shouldn't have let the 4th child and Ji go out. It's snowing so heavily. Even if they suffer, it's hard to survive." The square table at home is placed next to the earthen stove. There is a smooth stone slab on the table. Jiaran has a brush in his left hand and is dipping it in water to practice writing with his left hand. He is a person who can endure hardships. In just a few days, he has already written well. Jia Huan sat next to his brother, cracking hazelnuts and walnuts with a small stone, and put the selected nuts into a small bowl. This was a snack for his sister. Seeing Grandma like this, Jiaran said, "Grandma, don't worry, the village chief has said that if 4th uncle and the others don't come back tomorrow, they will send someone to greet them." Jia Huan also nodded, "The 4th uncle is the most powerful, so he will definitely be fine." Li Laosan was sitting on the edge of the thatched bed, polishing a 2-story wooden shelf in his hand, ready to put dishes, chopsticks, and sundries at home. He also responded, "Yes, Mother, I will follow you when the time comes and I will definitely bring back the 4th child." Old Mrs. Lee sighed. She was very afraid that her youngest son and grandson would not be picked up, so she took her 3rd son in again. Jiyan looked quietly at the mountains and forests outside, without any feeling of panic. She guessed that her father and the others would be fine, so she hugged her grandma's neck and cried out that she was thirsty, intending to divert her attention. Sure enough, Mrs. Lee quickly went to look for a small jar in the corner. The jar contains wild honey obtained from the forest earlier. The family keeps it and occasionally drinks it with water for good news. At this moment, Mrs. Lee mixed some warm water and made a large bowl. After a few sips of the good news, he waved his chubby hands and called his brother over. Jiaxi Jian swallowed greedily and quietly looked at her grandma, who didn't object. Then she smiled and moved closer to her sister. "3 brothers and sisters, you drank 1 mouthful and I drank the honey water quickly." Mrs. Lee picked up her sewing basket and pierced the solace of her shoes. After all, because her granddaughter was well behaved, she could not worry about her troubled son for the time being. "When I got up early the next day, the sky was a little gloomy, and the old people said they were afraid of heavy snow again. At this time, everyone in the village couldn't sit still. The young men in each cave came down from the cave, gathered together to discuss, and hurried into the mountain to greet Li Laosi and the others. Possible. The village chief walked around in front of people with his hands behind his back, holding the pipe pot, and said with a frown, "You can't have too many people there after all, there are people of all ages here, so we have to be on guard." He nodded to Li Laosan and said, "Laosan, can you take 5 or 6 people with you?" "It's okay, Uncle Village Chief, we'll set off now and be back soon." Li Laosan was already dressed neatly, with a hatchet in his hand, a rope tied around his waist, and more than 20 pieces of dry food in the bag on his back. "Pancake." He turned to the villagers and said, "If anyone's family can let go temporarily, please come with me. Our family will provide dry food." Immediately, 5 or 6 villagers stood up. They were all close to the Li family and often hunted with Li Laosi. With a simple tidying up, these people are about to go into the woods. At this time, someone in the cave suddenly shouted loudly, "There seems to be a shadow in the woods." Everyone immediately became happy. Lilao-san raised his leg and was about to run forward, but was stopped by the village chief. As people get older, they become more cautious. The village chief advised, "Wait a little longer and see if it's Lao Si and the others." How could there be anyone else walking around in such a deep mountain and old forest except for them? Everyone felt that the village chief was too timid, but they did not object. But after waiting and waiting, the people in the forest did not come out, and the people in the cave no longer saw their shadows, as if everything just now was like an illusion. But the villager insisted, "I can't be wrong. There are indeed figures, but 4 or 5, I can't tell them apart." Lilao-san couldn't wait any longer. He held the hatchet tightly and said, "I'll go take a look first." Whenever he moves, the villagers will of course follow him. So, a few people stepped on the snow and entered the forest. After walking for more than half an hour, Lilao-san, a good-tempered person, became a little anxious. Did the villagers really see it wrong? At this moment, a human figure appeared from behind the big tree not far away. Lilao-san and others were happy and wanted to call someone, but unfortunately their expressions changed in the next moment. "No, this is not my family." End of this chapter. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 118. Chapter 118. Visitors from outside the mountains. The man who came out from behind the tree looked like he was in his 30s. He was well dressed, but he seemed to bend down habitually, like a servant. Maybe he suffered some hardship in the mountains and forests. His face was bruised from the cold, and his coat and trousers were scratched to pieces. He was also holding a hatchet in his hand, but it was more like holding a pen, which was very awkward. Lilao-san and others subconsciously retreated, gathered together, raised the hatchets in their hands, and shouted loudly, "Who are you? Where do you come from?" The man's eyes were also full of fear and confusion. He looked at Lilao-san and the others carefully, and then responded, "I come from outside the mountains and am a refugee." "Who are you? Why are you here?" Lilao-san and the others were a little relieved, as long as they were not bandits. "We also fled here, but we entered the mountains very early." "Are you alone?" Before the man could respond, another coughing sound came from behind the tree, and then a man and 2 women came out. A woman looks like a servant, supporting a middle-aged woman who is very elegantly dressed. The other man was over 40 years old. Although he looked embarrassed, he could see a bit of bookishness in his eyebrows. Lilao-san and the others were even more surprised. Where did the nobles and scholars come from this deep mountain and forest? The beautiful woman kept coughing and seemed to be very ill. The middle-aged scholar was very anxious and took a few steps forward to salute Lilao-san and others. "Fellow fellows, do you live nearby? Is there a doctor in the village? We also fled here and need a place to stay. I wonder if the fellows can make it easier." "Are there only 4 of you?" Lilao-san asked cautiously, and the middle-aged scholar nodded quickly. "Yes, almost all the original carriage luggage was abandoned outside the mountain. We have been walking for 4 or 5 days without seeing anyone, and we really can't hold on. Luckily I met you all." Lilao-san hesitated for a moment and asked a villager to go back and report the news first, and then led the 4 people out of the forest, but he always held the hatchet tightly in his hand and never put it down. The beautiful woman was so sick that she could hardly walk. The middle-aged scholar had been a bit avoidant at first, but later he stopped caring and took turns carrying the beautiful woman on his back with the servant woman. In this way, after walking for a while, the group returned to the mountain stream. The village chief and Lilao had already led 7 or 8 villagers to wait. They lit a bonfire and of course brought firewood and sickles. Although some villagers reported the news in advance and everyone had speculations, they were completely relieved when they saw the four outsiders. Because these two men and two women are really not disguised as bandits and thieves, the beautiful woman's illness is indeed very serious. The middle-aged scholar did not expect that there would be so many people in the mountain stream, and was startled. He had to carefully look at several caves on the mountain, as well as the village chief and others, before he stepped forward to speak. He still did not identify himself. He only said that he was a fugitive and asked the doctor to stay temporarily. And he took the initiative and ordered the servant woman and his attendants to hand over all the hatchets in their hands. When the villagers saw this, of course they could not make things more difficult, but they had no intention of letting them enter the cave. They were only invited into a simple shed that was built on weekdays. The snow was cleared in the shed and a bonfire was lit. It was not very comfortable, but it was much better than braving the wind and snow outside. In each cave, old men, women, and children opened the curtains and peeked down secretly. The Li family was no exception, and Jiyan was even more curious. Unfortunately, she was hugged back by Tao Hongying without even taking a second look. The wind at the entrance of the cave is strong and can easily cause headaches. Shen Zhang is getting older and is unwilling to take the trouble. He had recovered from the cold before, but he became more and more afraid of the cold. At this moment, he wrapped himself in a wolfskin coat and hat, rolled himself into a ball, and then reluctantly got off the ladder. When he finally entered the shed and saw the beautiful woman and the middle-aged scholar, he was so shocked that he couldn't speak for a long time. The middle-aged scholar was also surprised. After careful identification, he asked tentatively, "But, Dr. Zhang from Jishi Hall?" Shenji Zhang coughed twice and quickly adjusted the wolfskin hat he was wearing crookedly. "It's me, but I don't know, how did Mr. Wen get here?" The middle-aged scholar didn't have time to say anything, so he grabbed his arm and pulled him in front of the beautiful woman. "Dr. Zhang, please help me quickly, Mrs. Kui, she caught wind and cold before entering the mountain. She had an intermittent fever on the way. She took some medicine pills, but it only relieved her, without much effect." Divine Dr. Zhang shook his head and whispered, "How come you two are together? In this troubled world, anything can happen to you." The middle-aged scholar had a bad look on his face, and sighed and said, "It's a long story, but the miracle doctor should save people first." Miracle Dr. Zhang checked the beautiful woman's pulse, then straightened up and said, "It's not a serious illness, it's just that the wind and cold have dragged on for a long time, but I still need to take medicinal soup for 6 or 7 days to recover for a while." After saying that, he still asked, "Where are you planning to go? Is there anyone to help you?" The middle-aged scholar shook his head, with a complicated look on his face. "We were driven into the mountains and forests by the barbarians. We are desperate and have no one to help us. If it is convenient here, can we stay here for a few days?" Miracle Dr. Zhang spread his hands and turned to the villagers and others, "I can't make the decision, so I'd better ask everyone." The village chief and everyone became wary when they knew that Dr. Zhang knew the visitor. After all, Dr. Zhang has saved countless people along the way and is highly respected by everyone. These people knew him, and they must not be bad people. Moreover, they came here alone and posed no threat to everyone. But if we leave them behind and the caves are full, how will we arrange for them? Perhaps seeing that the villagers were in trouble, the middle-aged scholar motioned to his entourage to take the package, took out 2 50-tael silver coins from it, and held them to the village chief with both hands. "Uncle, we are all downgraded people from the end of the world, so please make it easier for us. We have nothing but a little money. If any fellow villager is willing to sell the cave, this is our thank you gift. Even the smallest cave is worth it." "Good." The village chief quickly waved his hand and refused to accept the money. "Mr. Wen, you're welcome. It's not easy when you're away from home, so you should lend a hand. What's more, you know Dr. Zhang, who is half of your family. Take your money back, and I'll make some arrangements for you first. As he spoke, the village chief greeted two villagers, men from Aunt Wu's third wife's family and second sister-in-law son's family. The two families usually get along well, and this time they lived together in the smallest cave. You guys, please give up the cave temporarily and see if you can squeeze in wherever you want. Uncle Wu and brother Sun didn't refuse either. They are a family of three and don't have much luggage. It's easy to move anywhere. Mr. Wen insisted on giving the money to the village chief. I'm sorry to bother you, brother, but I must give you this money. It would be better if I could ask for some hot water for us and use simple things. The village chief thought for a while and accepted it. One silver lock was given to the Wu and Sun families, and the other was given directly to Li Laoer. Second brother, your family has the most abundant food. Go back and talk to your mother and take more care of Mr. Wen and the others. Let them eat with your family these days. Li Laoer agreed, even if he didn't give any money. For the sake of Dr. Zhang's face, his family would have to take more care of him. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 119. Chapter 119. Food is more expensive than money. Second Aunt Wu and second Aunt Sun lived well and were a little reluctant to move out, but when they saw the money, they were immediately happy. They can't live in the mountains forever. After they go out in the spring, they have no house or land, and they have to use money everywhere. Making a fortune at this time can be regarded as an unexpected gain. Soon, the smallest cave was poured out. The servant woman may have some martial arts skills, and she climbed up with the beautiful woman on her back a few times. However, Mr. Wen wasted a lot of effort, and was even laughed at by divine Dr. Zhang. When Li Laoer came home, he gave the money to his mother. Mrs. Li asked Tao Hongying and Zhao Yuru to go over and help, and share some of the excess buckets, pots, pans, and other supplies at home. In fact, at times like this, silver is really of little use, but food is the most valuable thing. Because in the deep mountains and old forests, there is such a war and cold winter, food can survive, but money may not be able to buy food. Old Mrs. Li was willing to help Mr. Wen and the other four because of Dr. Zhang's reputation and because her family had the confidence. With their precious granddaughter by their side, their family is not afraid of running out of food. Soon, before they could finish cleaning up, good news came to Grandma's ears, giving the old lady another great reason. Grandma, my eldest brother is studying, and I'm looking for my husband. It took Mrs. Li a long time to realize what was happening, and her eyes immediately lit up. Oh, Grandma's lucky girl, why are you so smart, haha, why didn't Grandma think of that? Jiyan hugged her grandma's neck and giggled, Grandma, take me there. I have to say that Jiaxi and Jian have been trapped in the cave these past few days. The biggest pleasure is teaching their sister to speak, and the results are still very good. Jiyan can't speak long sentences yet, but her pronunciation is much clearer. Mrs. Li thought about it for a while but refused. No, wait 2 more days. There are patients over there. Be careful, I'll get you involved too. Grandma won't go either, so you can do needlework at home with her. The good news faded away immediately. She didn't want to do needlework, she wanted to watch the fun. She was lying on the bed and rolling around in boredom, wishing she could eat a few more bites of feed. Tao Hongying couldn't bear to see her daughter like this, so she said, Mom, I'll carry Fu Niu there on my back. I won't stay too long and will be back soon. Zhao Yuru also said, Yes, Mother, Fu Niu is so sensible on weekdays. It's rare that she wants to go have fun, so let us take her with her. Okay, go ahead, go ahead. Old Mrs. Li waved her hands in confusion. I usually say that I spoil Fu Niu, but in fact, none of you can run away when she grows up and becomes unruly and willful, it will be your fault. Tao Hongying and Zhao Yuru both laughed and quickly wrapped Fu Niu in a quilt and tied her back with a bamboo basket. Ji Yan kissed them each and smiled happily. For a while, Tao Hongying carried Fu Niu on her back, and Zhao Yuru carried a large wicker basket. They took a bunch of them in a mess and went down to their cave. The cave given to Mr. Wen and the others can accommodate at most 7 or 8 people, so the place is very small. At this moment, there are 4 Mr. Wen, plus Dr. Zhang and the village chief, and the place is already very crowded. Tao Hongying shouted and asked the people above to get the basket down, and then they climbed up the vine ladder. The third Ant Wu and the second Ant Sun took away all the bedding and supplies, leaving only the hay for making the bed, which was about a foot thick, which was enough. Tao Hongying and Zhao Yuru got busy when they saw the beautiful woman sitting sickly on the cave wall. Laying linoleum, spreading quilts, setting up pots and lighting fires, boiling water to make porridge, all busy. Ji Yan, on the other hand, lay on her mother's back, blinking her big eyes, and kept looking at Mr. Wen and the 4 of them. Especially Mr. Wen, the more she looked at it, the more satisfied she became. Although it is said that knowing people, knowing faces, but not knowing the heart, there is also a saying that appearance comes from the heart. Mr. Wen has a dignified appearance, and his eyes are very upright. He looks like the most orthodox scholar, noble and dignified. It would be no problem for a person like this to be Jiaran's husband for a few months. Everyone didn't know that a little girl who had just turned 1 year old could think so much, they just thought she was curious. Soon, the beautiful woman was helped to lie down on the soft bed, and there were even a few hot pebbles placed under the quilt. The servant girl was extremely happy, and her somewhat rigid expression also showed gratitude. Mr. Wen found out and thanked Tao Hongying and Zhao Yuru. Tao Hongying was cheerful and spoke directly. "Sir, there is no need to be like this. Divine Dr. Zhang was entrusted to our family by a noble person. If you are familiar with Divine Dr. Zhang, you are also a guest of our family. What's more, our second brother also took the money back. My mother asked us to take good care of you. Unfortunately, I have been running away all the way. I don't have any good things at home. I hope your husband won't take offense if I'm negligent." "No, no." Mr. Wen glanced at the beautiful woman and saw that the purple color on her face had faded, and the maid was wiping her hands and face with a hot cloth. On the stove at the entrance of the cave, rice porridge was simmering in a small iron pot. Dried vegetables and minced meat seemed to be added to it. It was bubbling and bubbling. The aroma made him want to swallow his saliva. It all seemed like a dream. One moment I was going to freeze to death in the mountains and forests, but in the blink of an eye I had food, drink, and shelter. When the meat porridge was ready, Tao Hongying cut 3 more salted eggs. Mr. Wen and 4 other people, including Dr. Zhang and the village chief, all shared a bowl of meat porridge. The village chief blushed a little, but as he got older and his mouth became more greedy, he didn't want to refuse the meat porridge in his hand. As for Divine Dr. Zhang, he is already drinking zilly, snoring faster than anyone else. Su Su really suffered a big mistake in the woods. Even the beautiful woman insisted on drinking a bowl of porridge and eating salted egg yolk. After the meal, Dr. Zhang took the prepared medicinal materials, and Zhao Yuru helped cook them. The Dr. Zhang began to chase people away. "Okay, let's go, let them watch the medicine and drink it, and they will be fine after a good sleep." Tao Hongying thought for a while, carefully took out a pear from the basket she brought, and handed it to Mr. Wen. "This is what my family picked from the forest. There is not much. Sir, I keep it so that the noble man can remove the bitter taste after taking the medicine." Mr. Wen didn't expect that she would be so thoughtful. His mouth moved, but he didn't say anything. He only bowed deeply. Tao Hongying hurriedly hid aside, and then pulled Zhao Yuru down to the entrance of the cave. Jiyan lay on my mother's back, smiling and waving to Mr. Wen. Mr. Wen was stunned, quickly put the pears aside, and waved his hand. Jiyan couldn't stop giggling, and the more she thought about it, the more satisfied she became. Unfortunately, the treacherous Beifeng found an opportunity and choked her with a cough. Tao Hongying was frightened and ran back to her cave. She was relieved when she saw that her daughter drank hot water and found nothing unusual. Mrs. Li was anxious and asked her daughter-in-law, "How about Mr. Wen? Does he look good?" Tao Hongying said, "Mom, Mr. Wen is such a good person. He is very polite to us and doesn't look down on us. He also thanks us when we make the bed, and he also bows to us when we make porridge, and politely makes us uncomfortable." Yes, Mother Zhao Yuru also moved a small stool and sat next to the stove, whispering. "Mr. Wen is not the kind of scholar who has his eyes set high above his head. I see that he and the sick lady are not like a family, and they must avoid suspicion in everything they do, but he also hates the lady, which seems really strange. As long as Mr. Wen is good, we don't care about the rest. That's their business. After we get the money, we'll take more care of him and help him more. If the villagers ask, don't say too much." Mrs. Li told her daughter-in-law, smiling and thinking about when to mention to Mr. Wen about teaching Jiren how to read. They talked so lively that Jiren sat beside them and practiced calligraphy without stopping. "Since my grandson works so hard, the family will naturally try their best to help." At this time, someone outside suddenly shouted, "Oh, Mr. Lu is back, the fourth brother is back." End of this chapter. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 120. Chapter 120. The world is in chaos. The Li family all rushed to the entrance of the cave and opened the curtain. Sure enough, not far away, Li Laosi and Lu Baiatu had come out of the forest with Lu Yangji. The four men rolled like snowmen and pulled two sledges. The sledges were full of things, which showed that they had caught a big prey. Village people in each cave are jumping down like dumplings. The children were also shouting and clamoring to go down and watch the fun. Jiaxi Jian even wanted to collapse the cave. Old Mrs. Li pulled them and slapped each of them with a hat before letting them go down. Jian was also extremely anxious, stretching out her little hands and shouting, "I want milk, too, I want it too." Orange Mrs. Li hurriedly looked for the bamboo pole on her back. By the time her grandfather and grandson went down, the villagers had already surrounded the sledge on 3 levels inside and 3 outside. "I'm finally back. If you don't come back, I will lead people to look for you. I have already gone, but when I met Mr. Wen and the others, I came back." "Who is Mr. Wen? Is there a stranger in the village?" "Yes, they are here. Dr. Zhang knows them and they are not bad people." "Fourth brother, have you dug out the wild boar's nest? You actually killed 3 of them, and they're still so fat." The villagers seemed to be celebrating the new year, and it was as lively as a boiling soup pot. They were chatting with Li Laosi, saying something to you and me, making everyone confused. But Li Laosi, Lu Baiatu and others also quickly understood the changes in the family. Seeing Mrs. Li carrying the child forward, Mr. Li stepped forward to salute his mother, kissed his daughter again, and said with a smile, "Mom, we killed 3 wild boars, which is enough to last the whole winter. It's good to come back. The things are not important. We promised to be there in 4 or 5 days, but you have been gone for almost 10 days. The whole family is worried about not eating well or sleeping well. Don't go out next time." Old Mrs. Li complained about her son, and she even forgot to squeeze her son's arms and legs for fear that he would get hurt. At the end, I talked about family justice again and looked up and down again. Ji was beaming with pride and showed off to his grandma. "Grandma, I tripped over a wild boar and wiped my neck. The master even praised me." "Silly boy, it's too dangerous. You can't do this again. Go warm yourself up quickly and ask your 4th aunt to prepare delicious food for you tonight." Hey, Ji also kissed his sister and ran to find hot water to drink. Everything is good on the road. If you are hungry, you can roast chicken and rabbit, but drinking water is not easy. Soon, everyone helped to unload everything from the sledge. 12 pheasants, 7 or 8 rabbits, a robe, and 3 wild boars. The harvest was really rich. The village chief puffed out 2 pipes and pots and looked at Li Laosi and Lu Biatu. There are guests in the village and they are sick. The third and fourth daughters-in-law are helping to take care of them. Some of the pheasants are left to make soup for the patients. The rabbit meat is tender and distributed to those who have babies at home. As for the wild boar, half of it is stewed in the evening. Let's have some fun, each family will share the other half, and keep the other 2 for daily use. What do you think? Okay, listen to Uncle. Neither Lu Biatu nor Li Laosi had any objections. Everybody has been running for their lives together, and till now, we are a whole. They killed these prey and brought them back with great hardships, but they could not eat them alone. In this way, everyone took advantage of it, and they left most of it for their families, who were the best. After that, when the villagers hunted prey, they naturally had a share. Things were settled like this, and everyone in the village, young and old, dressed like balls, started busy with smiles. Old people clear snow and expand the open space to make it easier to work. Children followed in the trouble and were afraid but couldn't help but peek at the men killing pigs and skinning them. The women were busy fetching water and boiling water. The previously built stoves came in handy again. The iron pots from each house were unplugged and placed here, and they could quickly stew meat. There was no place to look for cabbage and radishes at this time. Fortunately, we picked many wild vegetables while on the road and they were all thoroughly dried in the sun. Soak it in water and wash it. It's also good for stewing pork. In just an hour, the mountain stream was filled with heat and fragrance. Uncle Zhao was worried about wild animals coming, so he arranged for some young men to stand guard. The young man was very happy to be entrusted with the important task. He walked around carrying a hatchet, holding his head high and chest high, looking extremely proud. Mr. Wen and the 4 of them were in the cave, hearing the excitement below and feeling enthusiastic. They had been in the mountains and forests for 5 or 6 days, but it was the first time they saw so many people, and they felt as if they had returned to the human world. Mr. Wen asked, "Sister-in-law Qian, has your fever gone away?" Before the cold-faced sister-in-law Qian could respond, the beautiful woman with her eyes closed spoke. "Brother, I'm fine, I'm not hot anymore. You go down and take a look, thank these people for me, and I will definitely repay you and these folks in the future, in the future." "Junior sister, don't say that." Mr. Wen also changed his title and lowered his voice to persuade, "the situation has come to this. You have to relax and take care of yourself." Ms. Kui shook her head, "Senior brother, I was too cowardly before, so I was bullied like this. I won't do it anymore. Don't try to persuade me, I know what I know. It's just that senior brother risked his life to turn around and rescue me. No, junior sister, you and I don't have to be so polite. I'll go down first and take a look, you rest." Mr. Wen seemed to be afraid of what she would say, so he quickly stopped talking, and then called to the attendant, "Wen Hai, come down together." The entourage quickly got off the vine ladder first, and then caught up at the bottom to prevent Mr. Wen from falling. When the master and servant arrived at the open space, the villagers greeted them warmly. "Mr. Wen is here, you can eat pork soon." Mr. Wen smiled and nodded his thanks. The village chief called him forward and introduced Li Laosi and Lu Biatu to him. "These are the 2 patron saints of our village. They went out to explore the road earlier and just came back." Li Laosi just heard what his mother said and knew that his family wanted Mr. Wen to teach his nephew, so he was very polite and bowed first and then started talking to Mr. Wen. They accidentally went a little off track this time and climbed 3 mountains. They didn't see any people. They were worried about home, so they hurried back. I didn't want my family to go out even once, but instead I waited for Mr. Wen and his party to arrive. There was a bonfire in the hut, and someone brought earthenware bowls and poured hot water. The villagers who had no work in hand gathered around to listen to what Li Laozi and Mr. Wen were talking about. Mr. Wen also sighed when he thought of the chaos outside. It's completely chaotic outside. Half a month ago, the barbarians arrived in Kyoto and headed south. We were a little late when we came out of Kyoto and were almost overtaken by the barbarians. We had no choice but to enter the forest. How many cavalry do the barbarians have? Have all the people in Kyoto and along the way fled? Lu Biatu asked. Mr. Wen's face turned even worse and he responded, I don't know how many barbarians there are, but there are the sounds of horse hooves everywhere. It should be that the entire clan is attacking. Because the capital was moved too suddenly and there were many obstacles on the road, many people did not move south in time. Some of them were moved southward. The barbarians killed them and their blood flowed like rivers, and some of them were captured by the barbarians. He took a sip of hot water impatiently and couldn't help cursing, those wine sacks and rice sacks in the imperial court usually squeeze the people's fat and oil to support themselves. When they are needed to protect the people, they can run faster than anyone else. The village chief looked unhappy when he heard this, and also cursed, the emperor has run away, who can we count on? Everyone was scared. Fortunately we left early and went directly into the mountains, otherwise we would have died at this time. Originally I thought we were suffering enough, but I didn't expect that compared to other places, it's already pretty good. What should we do when spring begins? We have to go out. End of this chapter.